My name is Tamara, and I guess you could say I'm a widow. It's been a year since my husband passed away. It's a title I never thought I'd have, but life has a funny way of changing things when you least expect it. Travis and I were deeply in love, the kind of love you read about in romantic books. We met in college, where we were figuring out love and life together. Travis was amazing, a charming guy with a smile that could light up even the darkest day. We were that couple everyone secretly envied, and life was good. We thought we had all the time in the world. But let me tell you about Travis' background. He had a tough childhood. His dad passed away when he was just a little boy, leaving a hole in his heart that never quite healed. His mom, Carolina, was something else, and I mean that in the worst way. Instead of being there for Travis when he needed her, she was off chasing her own love stories. Travis was practically invisible to her. Carolina remarried a wealthy man named Frederic, who lived in a completely different world. She cut ties with Travis like he was nothing, focusing only on her new husband's money and the fancy life they had. Frederic bought her a house, cars, and many other things, and she acted like Travis was just a nuisance. It was heartbreaking to see Travis struggle with her indifference. When Travis proposed to me, our life was stable and secure. It seemed like the perfect time to share the news with his mom, hoping it might help heal their broken relationship. So we went to her fancy mansion, full of hope. But when we got there, she couldn't have cared less. It was like Travis was a stranger to her. She barely acknowledged us, let alone our big news. It was clear she didn't care about us at all. That visit was eye-opening. When we stood at her doorstep, her coldness was shocking. "Hey Mom, it's me. It's been a while," Travis said. "Oh, Travis, why are you here? And who is this?" Carolina replied. "This is Tamara, Mom, my fiancé. Nice to finally meet you, Carolina." "I've heard a lot about you," I said. "Fiancé, huh? You're engaged, and that's why you're bothering me?" Carolina asked. "Mom, we thought you'd want to know." "I've missed you," Travis said. "Missed me, Travis? It's been years." "I've moved on," Carolina replied coldly. "Mom, please just listen. We're getting married soon, and we'd love for you to be part of our lives. We live just half an hour away," Travis pleaded. "Rebuild what exactly, Travis? I'm busy. I have a new family and a new life. I don't need reminders of my past," she snapped. "We're not trying to remind you of anything, Carolina. We just thought you should know about our wedding plans," I added. "Wedding plans? How quaint. But I've got plans of my own, plans that don't involve you or Travis." "I'm sorry, kid," she said dismissively. "Mom, why are you doing this?" "We're your family," Travis said, his voice full of pain. "Travis, I don't have time for this. My husband Fred will be back soon. He's the one who matters now," Carolina said. Her words cut deep, rejecting her own son like that. How could a mother be so selfish? Travis was devastated, and I felt his pain. But life went on, and we got married. Our wedding day was magical, and as I walked down the aisle toward Travis, I knew I was making the right choice when I married Travis. We exchanged vows, promising to stick together no matter what. Our first year of marriage was filled with beautiful moments. We lived in a cozy little apartment that we rented while saving up for a house. It was just the two of us, so the apartment seemed perfect. Travis was the most loving and caring husband. He would surprise me with breakfast in bed, and every day felt special. We created little routines together, lazy Sunday mornings with pancakes and cuddles, and adventurous Saturday nights trying out new restaurants. Travis always remembered the little things, like how I liked my coffee and my favorite flower. We talked about our dreams, our future, and how we wanted to build a family together. Our first wedding anniversary was supposed to be a magical evening. I went all out with scented candles, flowers, everything. I was just waiting for Travis to come home from work so we could enjoy a fancy meal and toast to our love. But life had other plans. Instead of Travis, the phone rang, and it wasn't good news. It was the police. telling me that Travis had been in a car accident on his way home. All those romantic plans, all the effort I put into making the evening special, it all fell apart. The dinner sat there, growing cold, while I rushed to the hospital with my heart full of fear. I paced the hospital corridors, praying that Travis would be okay. But the doctors gave me the heartbreaking news. There was nothing they could do. They said he had a day or two left at most. It was a gut-wrenching moment. They told me I could go in and talk to him one last time. When I entered his room, I was overwhelmed with emotion. We held hands, tears streaming down our faces. It was all in God's hands now, and I clung to the hope that a miracle might save him. Tamara, I don't know if I'm going to make it, baby, Travis said, his voice weak. The doctors say it's touch and go. Travis, don't say that. You're going to pull through. You have to, I replied, trying to hold back my tears. Tamara, I love you so much. Whatever happens, just promise me that you'll be happy and that you'll find love again. I couldn't have had a better life. Thank you. Travis, please. There's something else, he said, his voice faint. I bought us a house. It was meant to be our anniversary gift. It's a really nice one, in a great neighborhood, right next to my mom's place. I held on to some hope, I guess. I thought maybe if I was close to her, she might let me be part of her life again. I'm sorry, I feel like a fool now. Oh, honey, don't be sorry. You tried. The house is yours now. You're the owner. Do whatever feels right. I understand if you don't want a daily reminder of my mom, so you can sell it or live there. It's up to you. Travis, you're not going anywhere, I said, clutching his hand tightly as tears streamed down my face. I knew I had to make the painful call to Carolina. After all, Travis was her son, and the doctors had made it clear that he didn't have much time left, maybe just a day or two. I dialed her number, dreading the conversation. Carolina, it's Tamara, Travis's wife. I need to talk to you about Travis. He's been in a terrible accident, and the doctors don't have good news. They say he may not have much time left. Oh really? That's so sad. I'm sorry for him. I can send you the hospital address, she replied, almost dismissively. You don't know what I've been through lately. Frederic and I got a divorce, she continued, as if that was the most important thing. I'm sorry to hear that, Carolina, but Travis is your son, and he's in critical condition, I said, trying to hold back my frustration. I told Carolina she should come visit Travis at the hospital. Her response, I have a therapist appointment, so I won't be able to make it. Carolina, he's your son. How can you be so cold? He needs his mother right now, I said, shocked. Look, Travis and I haven't had a good relationship for years. He chose his path, and I chose mine. I don't see why I should drop everything now just because he's in trouble. It's about his life. Don't you want to see your son one last time? I pleaded. I don't know. Like I said, I had a lot on my plate right now. My condolences, Samantha. I'll try to be there for the funeral. Carolina, it's Tamara. You don't want to regret not being there for him when he needs you the most. I've already given my answer. Goodbye, she said coldly. I couldn't believe how selfish she was. Travis was fighting for his life, and she didn't even care. A few days later, the unimaginable happened. Travis passed away. It was a gut-wrenching moment that left me numb and lost. Surprisingly, Travis had a will in place, and he entrusted me with making arrangements for his funeral. In his will, he left me some of his assets, which was both comforting and heartbreaking. Even more surprising, he left a decent amount of money to his mom, Carolina. As for the new house, it wasn't mentioned in the will, but the seller had already transferred it to my name, so it was mine completely. Dealing with Travis' death was incredibly difficult, and I couldn't handle the funeral arrangements and paperwork on my own. That's when I turned to my sister, Kelly. Without hesitation, she said she'd help me through it all. The day of the funeral finally came, and it was as gloomy as our moods. Friends, family, and everyone who knew Travis gathered to pay their respects. It was a tearful service, with people sharing stories about him. Amid all that sadness, I couldn't help but hope to see Carolina there. But she didn't show up. I couldn't let it ruin the day, though. Grief had already taken a strong hold on me. After the service, we headed to the reception. People shared stories, gave condolences, and there was food. The will reading was supposed to happen during this time, and I had honestly given up on the idea of Carolina showing up. I was trying not to break down when, lo and behold, Carolina strolled in. "Thanks for showing up so early," I said sarcastically. "You've got quite the alcohol scent about you." "Just a few drinks with a possible future flame," she replied casually. "Seriously, you missed your son's funeral service for that?" "Oh, come on, sweetie. I needed something to soak up the booze. I felt a bit queasy after all that." "Carolina, I can't believe you. You couldn't be bothered to show up for Travis' funeral, and now you're here, drunk, for the will reading." "Honey, I don't do funerals. They're such a downer. But I'm here for the important stuff," she winked at me. I couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. Despite Carolina's outrageous behavior, it was time for the will reading, so I gathered everyone around. As the executor, I took a deep breath and began reading Travis' will. The room was filled with hushed anticipation, and Carolina seemed particularly eager. "Ladies and gentlemen, as the executor of Travis' will, I'm here to carry out his final wishes. Travis left behind some assets and his thoughts on how they should be distributed. Additionally, Travis allocated a separate account for his mother, Carolina. In it, he left a sum of $5,000. $5,000? That's all he left for me? Travis, my boy, you truly were a poor soul, a loser even in death," Carolina sneered. Everyone was shocked by her cruel comments. "Carolina, this is not the time or place for such remarks. Travis had his reasons for what he chose to leave behind," I said firmly. "Seriously? Was he even a lawyer or just pretending? I can't believe he didn't have any property or savings and only had that little bit stashed away. It's like he was good for nothing. Looks like the poor guy died from poverty." "You're clearly drunk, Carolina. You should leave," I said, my patience wearing thin. "Oh, you bet I should leave. He was a lassie excuse for a son, and I don't want anything to do with him," she said as she stormed out. As the hours went by, I couldn't shake the memory of that messed up day. Carolina's heartless act at Travis' will reading still stung like a bad hangover. My sister Kelly came over, and we both vented our frustration and sorrow about Carolina, who had shown no decency for her own flesh and blood. Time moved on, and I started thinking about the house Travis had bought for us. The idea of living next door to Carolina was unbearable. I couldn't stomach the thought. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I got in touch with the real estate agent who had been dealing with Travis's house purchase. Luckily, Travis hadn't completed all the paperwork before he passed away, so with the agent's help, I finally took the keys to the house. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing this was supposed to be our new home, but it was also a painful reminder that Travis was gone. One day, I gathered the courage to visit the house. As I walked up the driveway, emotions hit me hard. It wasn't just a house. It was a mansion, much grander than I had expected. Next door, Carolina's house seemed tiny in comparison. I didn't expect to see such a huge, beautiful place. As I walked through the door of what was supposed to be our new home, I couldn't stop thinking about the life Travis and I could have built together. The pain was unbearable as I explored every corner of the house, haunted by memories of what could have been. I realized that I couldn't live there without Travis. Determined to sell the mansion, I stepped outside. That's when I heard a familiar voice. "What are you doing here?" "None of your business," I replied. "Oh my God, there was no house here some time ago. Don't tell me you're the buyer of this place. It would be the biggest joke on earth with that little money your fiancé left you. Can't you feel any sympathy for your own son, who talks like that?" "Sympathy for that loser. I should throw a party instead." "Carolina, can't you cut the insults? Travis is gone. Show a little bit of respect." "Respect? Travis was a fool, just like his father. You and he made quite a pair." Her words hit me hard, not just because they were harsh, but because she was his mom. Her cruel comments replayed in my head, making the pain worse. So I decided not to sell a house after all. I was going to move into the mansion, not just to show off or compete with Carolina, but because I needed a fresh start. Maybe this was what Travis wanted, so I decided to do it for both of us. Packing up my stuff from our old apartment was tough. Everything had a memory attached to it, a piece of Travis. I wrapped up his photos, his favorite books, and all the little things we had collected over the years. When I stepped into the new house, it felt like a dream Travis was supposed to be a part of. The day I settled into the new house, I knew what I had to do. I baked a batch of Travis's favorite blueberry muffins, put on a nice sundress, and headed next door to face Carolina. I wanted to give her the news myself. She opened the door. "Tamara, what on earth are you doing here? What is this?" "Hi, neighbor. I just moved in, and I thought I'd bring over some muffins I baked." "What? How? When? Why?" "Let me break it down for you, Carolina. Travis bought this house for us as an anniversary gift. He probably used his savings." "Travis did that? Why didn't I know about it?" "Because, Carolina, you were too busy with your new husband and counting his money." "Tamara, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. You've always been absent. From not visiting Travis in the hospital during his last moments to skipping his funeral service and just showing up for the will reading. I made some mistakes. Carolina, you've been cruel and disgusting. You ridiculed Travis when you found out he left you very little in his will. You didn't even give him the respect he deserved. I never realized how much I hurt him until it was too late. Please, Tamara, I'm genuinely sorry. Sorry now that you found out your son had some money left for you. Love should have been unconditional. You know what, Carolina? Enjoy the rest of your life seeing my face every day as a constant reminder of what you did to your son. It's been a whole year since Travis passed away. They say time can heal wounds, but that doesn't mean the scars disappear. I'm learning to carry on, step by step. Carolina, on the other hand, is spiraling down a different path. It's hard not to notice her from my home right next to hers. She's been using alcohol as a crutch, drowning her sorrows, or maybe her guilt, who knows. Every time we run into each other, she has a look of guilt, shame, and regret on her face, and I can't help but feel a bit of sympathy for her at times. She missed out on so much when Travis was alive, and her absence during his darkest moments, even at his funeral, is something I can't forget or forgive. One thing I've learned through all of this is that being a bad person doesn't get you very far. Sure, you might gain some material things, but you lose something much more valuable, yourself. People who are dishonest, cruel, or selfish might seem like they're winning in the short term, but in the grand scheme of things, they don't last long. It's the ones who show love, compassion, and kindness who leave a lasting legacy. So my advice to anyone reading this is simple: be a good person. It might not always be easy, but it's worth it in the end.
Hello everyone, my name is Rain. I'm not a rich woman mistreated by my mother-in-law, but I was mistreated by my own parents. This story is about my useless husband, Charlie, and how my parents supported him more than they ever supported me. I've never told anyone this story before because I don't have many people in my life. I met Charlie about 6 years ago on a dating website. He had a decent job and seemed like a good guy. Charlie wasn't some knight in shining armor, but he was definitely a good boyfriend. We had some great years together at the start of our relationship. We dated for 4 years and then got married. He was a great partner to me and quickly became my parents' favorite. However, I did feel some resentment towards him because of that. At every family dinner, my parents would say things like, "We're so happy to have you in our family, Charlie. Rain finally made a good choice in life by bringing you to us. God really answered our prayers and gave us what we wanted. You know, we'd always wanted a son but never had one. You're such a nice young man and perfect for our family. Yes, Rain is okay and all, but she can't be our son. She doesn't understand that. Rain has always been a little selfish and greedy for attention. We're glad you stuck with her despite her flaws. They were right. I was selfish and greedy for affection. My parents always wanted a son and couldn't have one. They even tried for a bit after having me, but it wasn't possible. It made them resent me throughout my life. When I was young, I couldn't understand why they neglected me and favored other children if they were boys. They always complained about me and how they missed out on having a son. As I grew up, I was determined to prove to them that I could be just as good as a son. I got great grades, went to college, and got a good job. I even sent them monthly allowances so they wouldn't have to work anymore. Still, they never appreciated me. Charlie did nothing for them, but they loved him more than me. I tried to push aside my resentment because I was happy that my parents finally approved of one choice I made. Charlie also enjoyed the attention he got from my parents. His own parents had disowned him, and I didn't know why. None of his relatives even came to our wedding. Slowly, I started to understand why almost everyone in his life cut him off. He was a thief. I wish I were exaggerating, but I'm not. At first, it started off as him being lazy. One day, he suddenly took a lower-paying job because he didn't want to work long hours anymore. He said it was to avoid getting depressed, so I decided to switch jobs at my company and took a lower position with a pay cut to help out. "Why would you do that, Charlie? This is a serious pay cut and it will affect our life," I said. "Why would it affect us? You earn well enough to support our lifestyle. Just put more money into our joint account. That would solve everything," he replied. "You can't just assume that, Charlie. Things like this require a family discussion. If you want more money from me, you should have discussed it with me first. Do you have no regard for my mental health? Why would I even discuss this with you? We're married, so there's no my money or your money anymore. Stop being so dramatic," Charlie said. I was a bit annoyed by how casually Charlie was acting about the whole thing, and the fact that he refused to separate our finances worried me. But I still supported him because I loved him. That was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. Guys, this man spent all his money and time on video games. Yes, whatever little money he earned was spent on them. He put $500 into our joint account, but later he took out even more for himself. Charlie and I had countless arguments about this in the past. He was draining my savings and taking almost all of my paychecks. Sometimes he didn't even contribute anything to the household. He didn't help with chores either. All he did was work, play games, and spend money on things he wanted. I was getting sick and tired of being financially taken advantage of. No amount of talking ever helped. Instead, he always turned things around on me and yelled at me. My parents also took his side. They said, "Rain, why is your husband calling us, saying that you are financially abusing him? This is very unlike you, Rain. You better explain yourself." "Dad, I'm not financially abusing him. In fact, it's the opposite. He's been draining my savings and making me pay for 90% of our household expenses." "So what, Rain? People need to spend money on their family after marriage. It's shameful how you don't let Charlie use your credit card. You're punishing him for not having a fancy job like you. How did you become so greedy?" "Mom, he's misused my credit cards before. That's why I don't let him use them anymore. I can't risk our future knowing he has no control over his spending." But my parents still took Charlie's side. That made me even angrier. I knew he was using my parents to make me give him all my money. Little by little, all the love I had for him faded away. But one day, things reached a breaking point. I discovered that he had taken $20,000 from my personal account without permission. What did he spend it on? A new gaming PC and accessories. I was furious. I tried to get the charges canceled, but it didn't work. So, as a last resort, I decided to report it to the police. Charlie was furious when they came to arrest him that day. I was determined that my marriage had to end. I needed to get out. What I didn't realize was that I would lose more than just Charlie because of my decision. I texted my parents to tell them what happened. I didn't want them to hear about it from someone else, so I told them that night. They saw the messages but didn't reply. I was a little worried about their silence, but I was too exhausted to think about it, so I went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and saw a text from Charlie. He said, "Hey wife, I'm already out of jail. Are you surprised? Well, I am too. I never thought your parents would be the ones to bail me out." "What? My parents bailed you out? That's impossible. They would never do that to me. You're wrong, Rain. One call from me, and your parents were eager to help me out. They even cursed you out while they were at the police station. I must say, they are very disappointed in you. Hearing those words made my stomach turn. I didn't want to believe that my parents would do something like this. I rushed over to their house to get answers. I had no idea why they had bailed Charlie out. I had tried to keep them as uninvolved as possible. But they still managed to talk to Charlie and pay for his bail. I was getting really angry thinking about what they did. I walked into my parents' house and said, "Mom, Dad, please don't tell me you bailed Charlie out. Don't tell me what I heard is true. I can't believe you could do something like this, Rain. We raised you better than that. You're just punishing Charlie because he didn't listen to you. After marriage, he has every right to use your credit card. All your money is his money too. He did nothing wrong," my dad said. "Dad, he stole from me. He took $20,000 from my accounts, and this was after he had already emptied our joint account in the past. When does it stop?" I replied. "We know you've been financially controlling towards him, Rain. It's not right to shame your own husband for spending money. You were a bad wife to him. Charlie told us how you refused to put more money into your joint account. Spouses shouldn't hide their money from each other." "Charlie doesn't hide anything from you," Dad insisted. "Charlie didn't hide money because he had nothing to hide. After every paycheck, he had no money left. He barely contributed anything to our household expenses." "Oh my God, are you shaming a man for earning less than you? What can poor Charlie do when he earns so little? I can't believe what a greedy and selfish brat you've become," Dad said angrily. No matter what I said, my parents still supported Charlie. I should have seen this coming. They'd always preferred him because he was a man. Charlie filled that gap in their hearts from not having a son. Having a good and successful daughter wasn't enough for them. Still, I thought they wouldn't choose any man over their own child. I was wrong. My parents were completely hopeless. Their words hurt me when they blamed me. I was disappointed and sad, but I wasn't ready for what they said next. "Rain, you have truly turned into a horrible woman. We're ashamed of what you've become. We can't be associated with such a selfish daughter like you, so your father and I have made some decisions. We've invited Charlie over to our house. He'll be staying with us until you come to your senses. We'll pay for his lawyer fees and everything. You'd better drop the case and take him back, or we'll disown you. You're going to house the man who stole from me and financially abused me for years? Are you really going to disown me over this? You can't be serious." "We are dead serious, Rain. It's time we taught you a lesson. Just because you're financially independent doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Charlie has been such a good son-in-law to us. It's time we stand up for him and help him out in this tough time. He's already like a son to us, so we'll let him stay with us until you realize your mistake." Nothing could have prepared me for this. I thought my parents were biased towards my husband, but I never thought they would disown me for him. They constantly praised my abusive, freeloading husband for his wrong decisions and belittled me for being responsible. What they said that day completely shattered my heart. All the love I had for them was gone. I realized that all my life I had been loving the wrong people, but I wasn't going to let them take advantage of me anymore, so I said, "Fine then, have him in this house. But if he comes to live here, I will stop sending you money. I won't pay you a cent, so you can go and spend it on my loser husband. We expected that from you, Rain. We already know what a selfish person you are. You don't have to send us money. We can take care of ourselves. It's just like you to threaten us with money. Listen to me, Rain, you can't use your money to control us. The money you earn has made you proud. We'll show you what a mistake you've made by using your money to manipulate people. There's no reason for us to stay in contact with you. Don't come to this house or talk to us again." I looked at my mother, and she agreed with my dad. Both of them told me to go away and never show my face again. They'd even said I shouldn't call or text them. I took their words to heart and left the house. I didn't cry in front of them, but I broke down in my car. I cried so much that I had to pull over to calm myself. I spent over 30 years of my life trying to win my parents' love, and yet they threw me away like trash. They treated me like trash and called me trash. I felt like my world had ended that day. I went home and cried myself to sleep. The next day, Charlie called me just to brag about how he'd stolen my parents. He was already settled into my old room and called to tell me how much my parents hated me and loved him more. He said, Guess what, Rain? I'm in your precious room right now. Your parents even came to pick me up. They really hate you right now. I replied, Charlie, you're being rewarded for your crimes. It must be fun having loving parents who aren't even your own. He said, it was so easy to manipulate them, Rain. I didn't even have to try. You ran after them like a dog, but they never loved you like this. Honestly, I think they hated you all along. Poor little Rain worked so hard to make her parents love her and still failed miserably. I couldn't take it anymore, so I hung up while he laughed at my misery. That horrible man even had the nerve to send me a picture of him lying on my old bed. I wanted to cry, but instead, I pulled myself together and made a plan. I was going to follow through with my promise of not sending my parents any more money. I knew the absence of my allowance would hurt them, plus Charlie would eventually show his true colors, so I stopped sending them money and waited. As I predicted, just 2 days after the month ended, my parents started pestering me for money. They broke their own no-contact order and began asking, and demanding, that I send them money. They said, "Why haven't you sent us money yet? Do you know how many bills we have?" I replied, "What money, Dad? I already told you I won't send you money anymore. Funny to see you contact me after you proudly told me to get out of your life." Rain, don't be rude. Things were said when we were all angry. It's been weeks since that incident. It's time to move on. Families don't hold grudges. So now that you need money, you suddenly remember I'm family? Yesterday, Charlie seemed more like family to you. Why don't you ask him for money? That won't be possible, Rain. He doesn't pay for anything. We paid his bail, his phone bill, and his food. He's still asking us for money. Well, use your savings to feed him then. I'm sure you've saved some from the checks I used to give you. We already dipped into our savings when we paid for Charlie's bail. We have very little left. We need you to send us money, Rain. It's not fair for you to hold the past over us. No, this is completely fair, Mom and Dad. For years you've treated me unfairly because I'm a girl. You chose Charlie and loved him only because he's a man. I tried so hard to be a good daughter, to win your affection, but you two just showed me how wrong I was. I should have done this a long time ago. I'm cutting you off. I don't need people like you in my life anymore. Years of hurt and betrayal poured out of me. I absolutely unloaded on them, telling them exactly how angry I was. My parents were silent while I spoke. When I finished, they started pleading for forgiveness because they really needed my help. I hung up on them without listening any further. I had predicted that my parents would come banging on my door with apologies and pleas. I even expected some entitlement on their part. But my revenge became even sweeter because Charlie did something stupid that made my parents file a police report against him and kick him out. If you want to know why, you need to see this conversation I had with them. One day, they showed up at my doorstep to try and talk to me. I didn't open the door but spoke to them from inside. They said, "Rain, you need to hear us out, dear. We're here to apologize for our mistakes. We never should have let an outsider into our home. You are family, and you should have been our priority. We got caught up in our dream of having a son and didn't realize how bad your husband was. We've already paid dearly for it. Charlie stole our credit cards and drained our savings. We don't even have money for food anymore. Rain, please don't let your parents starve. We need your help. We promise we'll stand by you this time. We've already reported the theft to the police and kicked Charlie out. He'll never step foot in our lives again." I replied, "You should have thought about this when you happily chose Charlie over me. You're the only ones responsible for your situation now. I will only send you money for this month, but after that, I'm done. You have a month to figure out what to do." I said that and left them on the porch. I felt a little bad for my parents, but then I remembered how little I meant to them. That was enough to make me angry again. I did send them some money because I couldn't let them starve, but that was the last check I sent them. Just as they said, my parents filed a police report to get the charges reversed on their credit cards. Surprisingly, they sent back the money I'd sent them last time. They kept begging and pleading with me for forgiveness. The begging went on for so long that I started to get used to it. I saw it coming but didn't expect them to be so persistent. However, what they did next was even more unexpected. They actually signed over their house to me as an apology for all the mistakes they made against me. My parents showed up on my porch and left the papers there. I didn't know what to think. Apparently, they also got jobs so that I wouldn't have to spend my money on them anymore. I returned the papers and haven't contacted them yet. As for my husband, well, he's my ex-husband now. Yes, I filed for divorce and got him sent to prison for fraud. With a double case against him, Charlie's chances of avoiding jail were slim. Just as predicted, the judge put him in prison.
I couldn't handle the thought of dealing with a woman whose pregnancy made her look huge, while I would have to raise the baby alone and constantly see her big 9-month pregnant belly. He looked at me with disdain and had a smirk on his face, as if he was expecting this situation. Even though I knew this would happen, I quickly went to my room and came back with some divorce papers. I showed them to Anand without hesitation. He looked shocked and asked, "What's this all of a sudden?" "Well, it was your idea. Just sign it quickly. I'll submit it tomorrow," I said. His face turned red from embarrassment and anger at my words. "Watch carefully. I'll make you regret how you've treated and looked down on me," I warned him. "My name is Helen. I'm 26 years old and a housewife. 2 years ago, I used to work for a mobile company. I met Anand, my boss, when I was 24. We quickly fell in love and got married. Anand, who is 3 years older than me, was very reliable, especially when he was teaching me at work. I was really thankful for his clear guidance. We became good friends and often went out to dinner. When he asked me out, I was thrilled, especially since I had never dated anyone before. It's a bit embarrassing, but I was always more interested in cartoon characters than real men. Seeing my high school and college friends getting married one after another made me feel pressured. When I fell in love with Anton, I promised myself he would be my first and last love. I was thrilled when we started dating and then got married a year later. Anton was good-looking and popular with our female colleagues. I was proud to be his wife and enjoyed all the congratulations and well wishes we received. I felt incredibly happy, not knowing what would come next. The day after we officially registered our marriage, I mentioned to Anton, "Now that we're married, you expect me to quit my job, right?" Anton surprised me with his response. "I've always wanted my wife to focus only on home matters. Don't worry, I can support us with my income," he said. "But this is so sudden. You never told me this before," I replied. Anton had never mentioned wanting me to quit my job before we got married. I had taken the job based on my father's advice, and quitting without notice didn't feel right. I wanted to explain, but Anton's silent gaze made me stop talking. "I should have told you earlier, but it's too late now. Starting tomorrow, you don't need to go to work. I'll take care of the handover," Anton said. The news that I had to start staying home from work the next day hit me so suddenly that I felt dizzy. But Anton's decision was final, and since he had been my boss, I couldn't argue. Even though I had to leave my job without a proper goodbye, I was committed to making our marriage work. I focused on household tasks and tried hard to meet Anton's expectations. I cooked meals, especially his favorites, hoping for some recognition. Even though Anton never commented on the food, I longed for a bit of appreciation, especially after giving up my job and losing my previous recognition. One day I asked Anton, "Is my jacket clean? I have an important meeting tomorrow." "Yes, of course," he replied, showing his old-fashioned and commanding side. I reminded myself how lucky I was to be married to him and tried to meet his expectations. Without a personal income, I relied on Anton for everything. Our relationship often felt more like a boss and an employee than a husband and wife, but overall, our married life was relatively smooth. One day I fell ill and couldn't get out of bed. Feeling too weak to do housework, I planned to catch up on it the next day. Anton came into the room and, looking angry, demanded, "What are you doing? Get up and make some food," while kicking the blanket off me. I explained, "I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well." Instead of understanding, Anton scowled and said, "You don't work, and you're lying down just because you're a bit sick." Pathetic. I was shocked that he would insist on chores even when I was sick. I never expected him to be like this before we got married. Maybe I should have noticed, but it was too much. I ended up doing the chores while crying. A few days later, I realized I had missed my period and felt a rush of panic. I went to the drugstore and bought a pregnancy test, which turned out to be positive. Overjoyed, I cried tears of happiness and decided to tell Anton as soon as he came home from work. That night, Anton came home after midnight, smelling strongly of alcohol and staggering as he walked. I was surprised at how drunk he was, especially since he hadn't warned me. Despite having prepared dinner and wanting to share my pregnancy news, I decided to tell him right away. My excitement got the best of me, and I shared the news with my tipsy husband. "I haven't seen a doctor yet, so it's not confirmed," I said, trying to share our exciting news. But Anton's face turned dark as he replied, "A child? What have you done?" His tone was colder and more severe than I had ever heard. "I don't want a child. This is the worst. If you're going to have it, you'll have to take care of it yourself." His harsh words shocked me. He angrily undressed and went to the bathroom. I couldn't understand why he was being so irresponsible about our baby. The happiness I had felt moments ago was replaced with deep sadness. He had never said he didn't want children before. We hadn't been using contraception, so I assumed we both wanted a family. As I was hanging up Anton's jacket and about to take his shirt to the laundry, I noticed something in the pocket. What's this? It was a piece of paper that felt like a receipt. At first, I thought it was from tonight's event and was about to throw it away, but then I saw the name of the place. Is this a motel? My hand shook as I realized it was indeed a motel receipt. This discovery shocked me deeply. I wondered why Anton would behave this way. Marriage is supposed to be about love between two people, especially since we'd only been married for just over a year. I had spent years dreaming of romantic relationships but never really experienced one. I couldn't immediately accept this painful truth, but the idea of Anton cheating started to make sense. Were all my doubts about him using me as a servant while loving someone else true? Was this the reason he reacted so harshly to the news of my pregnancy? As I struggled with these thoughts, I started to feel nauseous and began to suspect that something was seriously wrong. It seemed like Anton had a mistress at my former workplace, and perhaps he wanted to marry me for stability rather than love. Everything started to make sense, and I felt like the line between reality and my imagination was blurring. Still, I couldn't ignore the hurtful things he said after I told him about the pregnancy. I decided to gather proof of Anton's infidelity. His cold behavior towards me made it clear that he was angry about the pregnancy. Even though I was dealing with morning sickness, he would deliberately eat strong-smelling foods around me and criticize my housework, making me redo things. It was tough on my pregnant body and heart, but I was determined to find out the truth. Anton never let go of his cell phone, even taking it with him to the bathroom, so I couldn't look at it. When I snuck into his room, it was always tidy, and there was nothing suspicious. He was very organized at work, and his desk was always spotless. It became clear that catching him red-handed would be difficult. I frequently checked his pockets for receipts or other evidence, but my search was coming up empty. I thought about hiring a private detective, but I didn't have the money for that. I was lost in thought about my situation when I got an unexpected phone call from my father, who rarely called me. "Hello, it's me, your dad. How are you?" he asked. I was surprised to hear from him, given how busy he usually is. "Dad, what's going on? Aren't you swamped with work?" "My employees have been doing well, so I'm not that busy," he said. As the CEO of a company in Canada, my father had always been a workaholic. I didn't have many childhood memories of spending time with him, but I respected his dedication. I wondered why he was calling now. "So what's up?" I asked, waiting for him to explain. My father then shared something shocking. "Is that really true?" I asked, stunned by what he revealed. "Yes, he's not the type to lie." "I want you to trust me," my father said, trying to reassure me. At first, I was in shock and couldn't respond, but as I processed the information, I felt a sense of relief. "Thank you, Dad. I'll do my best," I said gratefully before ending the call. My investigation was finally showing results, and I felt a mix of relief and anger because of the ongoing tension with Anton. Despite being pregnant, Anton remained distant, which only deepened my resentment towards him. Months went by, and our relationship stayed strained. Then something happened that shattered our life. As I approached my 9th month of pregnancy, I lived in constant fear around Anton, trying to avoid him and leading a quiet, restricted life. One evening, while serving dinner as usual, Anton came home, and we sat at the dining table. As I ate silently, Anton suddenly slammed his fork down. "What is this? It's tasteless," Anton yelled, throwing the food I had cooked onto the floor. I was shocked by his outburst and struggled to understand what was happening. My frustration grew as I saw my meal discarded. Anton complained that my cooking had been bland recently, but I had been using less seasoning to make the meals healthier for everyone during my pregnancy. If he didn't like the taste, he could have added some salt himself. There was no need to throw the food on the floor. As I was about to speak up, Anton sneered and made a hurtful remark. "I don't want a woman with a belly like a monster. You'll have to raise the kid by yourself," he said with malice and a cruel smile. I had feared this day might come, though I had hoped for a different outcome. Quickly, I went to my room, grabbed some documents, and returned to show them to Anton. "Here are the divorce papers," I said, pushing the documents towards him. Anton looked stunned and asked, "What the hell? What's this all of a sudden?" "Well, it was your idea. Just sign it quickly. I'll submit it tomorrow," I said. I had been thinking about divorce ever since I suspected Anton's infidelity. With a baby on the way, I wasn't sure if I could manage on my own, but now I had a new plan. My determination seemed to anger Anton. His face turned red with rage. "Just wait. I'll make you regret every moment you looked down on me and tried to control me. Do you think you can manage without me? You'll have a baby to care for, and you'll regret it." I stayed firm and unshaken. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me, I assured him, maybe annoyed by my resolve. Anton grabbed the divorce papers and started filling them out. Here you go. If this is what you want, it's yours, he said. Thank you, I replied. Anton probably didn't think I would actually go through with it, as he handed the papers over without much fuss. The next day, I submitted the divorce papers and left the house. I knew he'd be surprised when he came home from work to find out. After that, I moved to my parents' home. My father had returned to the US from Canada and suggested I stay with them. It was the right choice for me as I was fed up with life with Anton. I was deeply grateful to my father for his support. On the day I left our home, Anton called me 3 times, but I ignored each one. Eventually, he stopped calling. It became clear that I meant very little to him. He was probably happy with his mistress and might even be planning to remarry. I decided to move on from Anton. 6 months later, I had a baby who was born safely, and I was living happily with my parents. While enjoying this peaceful life, Anton called me again. At first, I ignored his calls, but after he persisted, I had no choice but to answer. Hello, what do you want now? I asked, tired of his calls. Hey, what's going on? Why were you on that show? And since when are you the daughter of a CEO with millions of dollars? Anton's voice was filled with surprise and anger. It turned out he had seen a TV show about my family's lifestyle, which aired after I moved back with my parents. After returning to my family's home, I was approached by a TV station because of my father's role as CEO of a major global tech company. The show featured the luxurious lifestyle of CEO families, and they filmed at our house, discussing our family's wealth, which was estimated at around $10 million. I never expected Anton would see that show, but the reach of television is truly powerful. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention that I inherited $33 million, which is why I was able to divorce you, I said. My father had told me about this inheritance, and it gave me the confidence to live comfortably even after leaving Anton. Anton's reaction was immediate and furious. What? That's unfair. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Half of it is mine, right? Give me the money now. I replied calmly, just as I suspected after seeing the show. All you can think about is getting money from me. Gifts from parents aren't included in the property division, and don't forget your own actions. Anton looked confused and asked, What are you talking about? I'm tired of your anger, Anton. You called me. You should know you can't blame me for what you did. You cheated, didn't you? With your new wife, who's a junior from your company? You started seeing her even before we were married, I said. Anton was clearly shocked by what I knew. I finally had the upper hand. Did you think I wouldn't find out? My father has many connections in your company, and one of them told me about your affair. I haven't mentioned it before, but I will be demanding child support, I declared. Anton, still in denial, argued, Stop kidding. Why should I pay child support? It's all your fault. You got pregnant on your own and didn't keep up with the housework. It's your fault. I was stunned by Anton's refusal to take responsibility and his blame shifting. I couldn't believe I had ever been married to someone so unreasonable. It was clear I had made the right decision to leave him. Anton, I'm broke. My wife spent all my money, and now I'm in debt, he lamented, but I wasn't moved by his pleas. I was angry and incredulous at his refusal to acknowledge his mistakes. I had no desire to deal with someone so unreasonable ever again. Gripping my phone tightly, I prepared to end the conversation. What are you talking about? Do you even realize how ridiculous you sound? I never want to deal with you again. I'll have my lawyer handle the child support. Don't call me again, and you won't see the child anymore. Goodbye. After expressing my frustration, I quickly hung up the phone. I blocked Anton's number, took a deep breath, and felt a sense of relief. It was over now, and I hoped I wouldn't receive any more calls from him. I was determined to protect my peaceful life. Just then, I heard my baby crying from the other room and rushed to comfort them. It turned out that Anton started paying child support every month. A former colleague of mine mentioned that Anton's new wife was a big spender, and he ended up using debts to cover his living expenses. It seemed Anton had hoped to get a share of my inheritance by reaching out to me, but since he didn't get any money from me, he was now facing more expenses than his income could handle. He struggled, possibly because things were going poorly or because he couldn't stand being looked down upon by his colleagues. Adding to his troubles, he only started searching for a new job after leaving his previous one, which led him to financial difficulties. Hearing this didn't make me feel sorry for him. I felt he deserved the hardships he was facing. The harsh words and cold behavior he showed me were unforgettable, and I hoped he got what he deserved. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying life with my parents and my baby. With no financial worries, I'm excited about the future, especially since my father mentioned passing the company on to me. I'm ready to work hard, just like my dedicated father.
Hi, my name is Carrie and I'm 32 years old. A couple of years ago, I went through a divorce. It was a tough experience, but now I feel like I'm in a place where I can talk about it, so here I am. I've always felt like I lived an average life. I wasn't particularly great at anything. I did okay in school, and I was decent at most things I tried, but I never excelled at any of them. You could say I was a jack of all trades, master of none. My looks were pretty average too. I wasn't unattractive, but I wasn't the type to turn heads when I walked into a room. Growing up, I was comfortable with how I looked. I wasn't self-conscious because I'd had a few really handsome boyfriends in high school and college, so my appearance never really bothered me. That all changed when I got into a toxic relationship during my last year of college. At first, my boyfriend seemed nice. I knew he wasn't the one, but I enjoyed his company, so I kept seeing him. As my feelings for him grew, I started ignoring his bad behavior. I was so blinded by love that I didn't realize how much he was hurting my self-esteem. By the time the relationship ended, my confidence was completely shattered. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling ugly and breaking down in tears. It took me 5 years after college and leaving that boyfriend to start dating again. The person I began seeing was my now ex-husband, Nick. We met at a bar when I was out celebrating a friend's birthday. I wasn't drinking that night because I didn't like how overly confident I got when I was drunk, and I didn't want to embarrass myself. Nick was the one who approached me. "Hey, how's it going?" he asked. "Oh, hello, I'm good, thank you. How about you?" "I'm just enjoying the vibe here. Mind if I join you? Why are you sitting alone?" I needed a break from all the dancing. We're celebrating a friend's birthday. It looks like they're having a blast. They really are. They're all single, by the way, if you're interested. Why go to them when I'm already talking to the most beautiful girl in the world? You must need glasses if you're talking about me. My eyesight's fine. I could have talked to them, but I chose you. Oh. How about this? Give me your number, and tomorrow when we're sober, we'll grab coffee. I like that idea. We exchanged phone numbers and continued chatting until Nick had to leave for work the next day. I felt a warm rush of happiness. No one had ever approached me like that before. In all my past relationships, I was always the one who started the conversation. Nick slowly began to help me overcome my insecurities. The next day we went for coffee, just as Nick had promised. He made me feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. The first thing he said to me wasn't even a hi or how are you. He looked at me in awe and said, "Wow, you're beautiful." I didn't think I could blush, but Nick made my cheeks turn red so often that it looked like I was wearing blush on purpose. We started meeting regularly after that, and soon we were dating. I felt so loved and appreciated. Whenever I was with Nick, everything seemed perfect. After dating for a year, we moved in together, and after 2 years, Nick proposed to me at the coffee shop where we had our first date. I was so happy that I said yes through tears. Our wedding was a small, intimate event with only our closest friends and family. For me, our relationship felt like a dream come true. Over those 2 years, Nick helped rebuild my confidence. He told me I was the prettiest girl in the world so many times that I started to believe it. He made me fall in love with myself again. That's why what happened later was so shocking and heartbreaking for me. During the first 2 years of our marriage, we focused on our careers. I worked at an accounting firm and earned a good salary. Nothing extraordinary, but enough to support myself. Nick, on the other hand, worked for a big company and earned 1.5 times what I did. He was always striving for more promotions, and I admired that about him. We both agreed to work hard because we wanted to start a family soon. We stuck to our plan, worked hard, and saved up a good amount of money. When we started trying for a baby, I got pregnant within 2 months. Nick and I were overjoyed. I felt like I was living my dream life. I had my dream job, lived in my dream house, was married to my dream man, and was about to have my dream baby. It felt like I had everything I ever wanted. Of course, I was nervous about becoming a parent for the first time. One night, after a tough day at work, Nick and I lay in bed and talked about our fears. "You know, babe, sometimes I get scared thinking about being a mom," I admitted. "It's just overwhelming to imagine being responsible for another life." "I feel the same way," Nick said. "The thought of accidentally hurting our child terrifies me. One small mistake could mess them up for life." "Definitely," I agreed. "But kids are resilient. They're not as delicate as we think, and being scared of messing up just shows that we'll be careful and make things right when we do make mistakes. You're right, Nick said. When I think back, my father was absent a lot. It left a void that nothing could fill. I don't want that for our child. You won't, I assured him. I'll be right there with you through everything. We'll learn and grow together, and I'll hold you accountable, just as I expect you to hold me. I promise to always be there with you, my love. How did I get so lucky with you? Nick asked. The feeling is mutual, babe, I replied. We're in this together no matter what. We'll be the best parents we can be. Even though I was terrified, knowing that Nick would be by my side comforted me greatly. I was certain that no matter what challenges came our way, he would be there for me. But I was so wrong. A couple of months after that conversation, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, and we named him Joe. The first few weeks with Joe were incredibly hard. He was a fussy baby who never slept at night. Nick and I took turns staying awake, and the lack of sleep started to wear us both down. We became cranky and irritable. To make matters worse, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression, PPD, so I struggled every day. I could barely get out of bed. Nick had to take care of most things: baby Joe, the household chores, and the cooking. I did what I could, but my mind felt like it was in a fog all the time. The only thing that seemed to help was lying in bed and crying. I tried to care for Joe when Nick was at work, but as soon as he got home, I would gladly hand Joe over to him. My PPD made it impossible for me to keep my job, so I had to resign and focus on coping with my illness. One day, after a tough day at work, Nick came home and lashed out at me. I couldn't get Joe to stop crying, and he said, "Why can't you do better as a mother? All you do is sit around." "What are you talking about?" I replied. "I'm fine with quitting my job, but I'm supposed to take care of Joe. If you can't even manage that, what's the point? You know I have postpartum depression," I cried. "How long will you use that as an excuse?" he snapped. "Do you think I'd lie about something this serious?" I asked. "Look at me. Do I seem like I'm enjoying any of this? Every day is a struggle, and it physically hurts not being able to care for Joe. I wish I could do more, but I can't." "I had a tough day at work too," Nick said, his tone softening. "My boss is pushing hard, and I'm on the edge, balancing it all, work and Joe. It's overwhelming." "I get it, babe," I said, trying to calm things down. "It's not easy. I'll try harder, do more, so you don't have to carry it all." No, I'll manage," Nick replied. "It's been 6 months since Joe's birth. I need to take my role seriously and support you. I don't want you to strain yourself. I'll handle things." "I want to do my part, babe," I said, "for Joe and for us. We're a team, right?" "Yeah, we are," Nick agreed. "We'll figure it out together." Even though I was terrified, knowing that Nick would be by my side comforted me greatly. I was certain that no matter what challenges came our way, he would be there for me, but I was so wrong. I started pushing myself to fight through the fog in my mind. I took care of everything around the house while looking after Joe. The only thing that comforted me was food, which is why I gained about 30 pounds. I didn't have the time or energy to work off all the food I was eating. I began to notice that Nick was spending less and less time at home. He still did his share of the responsibilities, but he was always working late. When he came home, he was too exhausted to talk to me or spend time with me. It hurt a lot because I was already struggling, and the one person who was supposed to be my support wasn't there for me. Every time I asked Nick why he was away so much, he said he was working towards a promotion for us. I just wanted one night with him, but he never seemed to want that. Even on weekends, he would lock himself in his office and work. Over time, I stopped asking and got used to his absence. One day, Nick surprised me by asking me to go with him to a work dinner. I was so excited that he was finally taking me out, so I went shopping and bought a nice dress. I got dressed up, dropped Joe off at my mom's place for the night, and expected a compliment from Nick, but Nick didn't say anything. I let it go, hoping the event would lift his spirits. At the dinner, I met a lot of Nick's colleagues, including his boss, Amelia. She wore a tight red gown that highlighted her figure and looked gorgeous. She approached us confidently with a pretty smile and greeted us with kisses on the cheek. "Hey, I'm Amelia." "Are you Nick's wife?" "Yes, I am. My name's Carrie." "I thought so. I've heard so much about you. I hope most of it is good. Oh, definitely, you're quite the topic. Sorry for keeping Nick buried in work. I know he'd rather be with his pretty wife. Well, you better get him that promotion then. Oh, believe me, he's very close to getting one. That was good to hear, but the whole time, Nick just looked at the ground. He wouldn't talk to anyone when I was with him, but as soon as he left me to socialize on his own, he was open and laughing. It hurt. By the time the event ended, I was beyond upset, but I didn't bring it up because Nick didn't seem like he wanted to talk. When Joe turned a year old, he was a lot less fussy than when he was a newborn, so I had a little more free time. I decided to start looking for work, nothing too big, just something with flexible hours. After applying to a bunch of places, I finally got a job as a content writer. I was paid per article and could submit as many as I wanted, whenever I wanted. It was the perfect job. I excitedly told Nick about it that night at dinner, but he just grunted and gave me a half-hearted congrats. I didn't know why I expected him to be excited or happy for me. It hurt how little he cared, and I cried myself to sleep that night. After that, I kept myself busy with Joe, the chores, and my work. I began to feel better, and the fog started to lift, but there was still a huge hole in my heart that only Nick could fill. One morning, I missed him too much. After putting Joe to sleep, I walked into Nick's office. He wasn't home, but since he spent most of his time in that office, it had become his second room. I wanted to be close to him, so I sat in his office chair, closed my eyes, and took in his scent. When I opened my eyes, I looked at his desk and couldn't help my curiosity. I wanted to know what he did in his office all day. That's when I stumbled upon a manila file that looked out of place among the loose papers in the drawer. I picked it up and looked inside. To my absolute horror, I saw divorce papers. Nick had already signed them. The only space left blank was where I was supposed to sign. My heart shattered. I knew things weren't perfect between us, but I didn't think they were this bad. I still loved Nick, despite his absence. I thought he was just stressed about work and raising a child, but asking for a divorce was too much. I knew I had been difficult to deal with after giving birth to Joe, but I was really sick. There were many things I could have done differently, but at the same time, I felt like I couldn't have done anything. I sat in his office and cried for so long that when Nick came home, he looked surprised to see me sitting there. He saw the file on the table and realized that I had found out. "Nick, I need to know why," I said, my voice trembling. He looked down, avoiding my gaze, and quietly said, "Because I felt like the spark had faded." "Don't lie to me," I demanded. I thought if we were married, Nick would talk to me instead of just walking away. So I asked him, "Do you really want to tell me the truth?" He said, "Yes, for months I've been seeing someone, my boss, Amelia." I was shocked and asked, "How could you?" Nick explained that they spent many late nights at work together, and it just happened. Plus, she was very attractive. I asked, "Why would you do this to me?" Nick responded, "Look at yourself. I could overlook being poor, but you're not attractive anymore. You're so fat and ugly. Pregnancy ruined you. I regret getting you pregnant." I was heartbroken and asked, "How can you regret your own son?" Nick coldly replied, "I'd rather have a hot wife than a son. Sign the papers, I'm marrying Amelia." I was furious and told him he was heartless. I thought he loved us, loved me. But he said, "Things change, Carrie." In that moment, something came over me. I went to our room, packed his things, threw his bag at him, and told him to get out. I also said I would contest the divorce. Without a word, Nick left. I cried the whole night, wondering how he could do this to me and Joe. My sadness turned to anger. I wondered if Nick and Amelia had been having an affair when I went to that business dinner party. Is that what she meant when she said he would get a promotion? I wanted to break something but instead took deep breaths, pulled out my laptop, and looked up Amelia. I found out she was married too. I didn't have proof, but I messaged her husband on Facebook, telling him what I found out. I hoped something would happen and that Nick and Amelia would face consequences. The next morning, I forced myself not to look at my phone and focused on taking care of Joe and working. I needed to earn money to afford a lawyer. In the afternoon, I had a visitor. Amelia's husband, Jerry. He looked like he hadn't slept. He awkwardly asked if he could come in, and I let him. We sat in a living room, and he asked how I was holding up. I said I was okay, just trying to wrap my head around everything. Jerry said, "Yeah, I know what you mean. This whole situation is a mess. So why did you come over?" He explained that after my text, he and Amelia had a massive fight. He came over partly to get out of his place and partly to suggest that we get revenge on them together. "Revenge?" I asked. Jerry explained. "They both hurt us deeply. Maybe we can give them a taste of their own medicine." I agree, saying, "Nick not only betrayed me, but he also hurt our son. I'm with you on that. They need to understand the pain they caused." So we started planning. Jerry knew people in high positions at Amelia and Nick's company. He was the one who recommended Amelia for the job in the first place. Meanwhile, we tried to collect evidence of the affair. Jerry had access to all of Amelia's messages because her phone was synced with their iPad. He also helped me get a great lawyer. The next few weeks were hectic. We went to court for the divorce. Thanks to my lawyer, who presented a strong case of neglect, I had the judge's favor. During the trial, Jerry and I moved to the next phase of our plan. He contacted his friends at the company and informed them of Amelia's misconduct. Within a few days, both Nick and Amelia were fired. With proof of Nick's neglect and his unemployment, I won the case and got full custody of Joe. I also got more than half of our marital assets, making me financially stable. Nick and Amelia found out what Jerry and I had done, and they tried to contact us, leaving messages and emails, but we ignored them. Jerry and I started hanging out a lot after this ordeal, bonding over our heartbreak and betrayal. Eventually, we realized we have feelings for each other. Nick's constant neglect made me lose my love for him, and his actions sealed the deal. Jerry and I started dating a year after everything happened, and we still are to this day. He's great with Joe and has accepted him as his own son. A year and a half after Jerry and I started dating, Nick reached out to me. He had stopped trying to contact me 2 months after the court hearing since I never replied. He asked if we could meet at a cafe near my place. After discussing it with Jerry, I agreed. When I saw Nick, he looked haggard, like he hadn't been sleeping or eating. I have to admit, it felt satisfying to see him like that. He asked, "What's up?" "Make it quick. Jerry's waiting for me outside." "Jerry? Why is he waiting for you?" he asked. "Oh, we're together," I replied. Nick got angry and said, "You got mad at me for sleeping with my boss, and here you are sleeping with her ex-husband." I calmly explained, "Jerry and I got together after what you and Amelia did. Our relationship was completely over when Jerry and I started dating. It's very different from what you did. Is this why you called me?" Nick looked embarrassed and said, "This is really embarrassing, but Amelia and I are pregnant and we're struggling a lot financially. It's putting a strain on our relationship. Do you think you could help me out a little?" I was shocked and replied, "Are you out of your mind? It's embarrassing that you're asking your ex-wife to lend you money to support your affair partner's baby. You're pathetic, Nick. Never contact me again." I couldn't believe his audacity. I walked out of that cafe with my head held high, feeling beyond satisfied. I had a loving boyfriend, an amazing son, and a good job that paid well, thanks to Jerry. I didn't know what happened to Nick and Amelia, and I didn't care. I was happy with my life and decided to put the past behind me. This whole experience prompted me to reinvent myself, and now I'm a completely different and better person. Thank you for listening to my story. Hello, I'm Emma, a 36-year-old mom to a wonderful 7-year-old named Andrew. Recently, my life has been pretty chaotic, and it's all because of my lousy ex-husband. You know the type, the one you wish you'd dealt with a long time ago. That's him. We met in college and went through some big life events together. We graduated, moved to Chicago, and supported each other when we first got jobs. We built a life together, but I don't want to overstate things. Josh has always been an average guy. He wasn't super successful or rich. We got together when I was in a vulnerable place because my mom had been diagnosed with cancer. Josh came along at that time and gave me the support I needed. Then, on one memorable Thanksgiving, Josh surprised everyone by getting down on one knee and proposing. It was a beautiful moment. I said yes, and we decided to get married. As a wedding gift, my parents gave us a mansion they owned. It was an amazing gesture and a great start to our life together as husband and wife. Then we had Andrew, our baby boy. Becoming a mom gave me clarity about my life and purpose. but Josh seemed lost. While I thrived in my well-paying job, Josh was struggling. He jumped from one job to another, never staying at one for more than a month. Our relationship hit a rough patch. At first, I thought things would get better, but I noticed subtle changes in Josh's behavior. He seemed unhappy with his financial situation. I earned more than him, which shouldn't have been an issue, but it hurt his ego. One day, I found some clues that suggested Josh was involved in illegal activities. I couldn't confront him directly because I knew he'd feel attacked and get defensive. I knew the company he worked for and was surprised by how much money he seemed to be making. It just didn't add up. It felt like I was walking on eggshells around him, and it was really tough. Finally, I had enough. One evening, I got the courage to have a serious talk with him. To my surprise, he didn't get defensive. He admitted to the illegal stuff and his messed up reasons for doing it. He told me he'd been using the company's credit cards for his own expenses and embezzling money. He said it hurt his ego that I earned more than him, and that we lived in a house that was mine, not his. When Andrew was born, things got even worse for him. He felt ashamed that he wasn't the one providing for our family, and he got tangled up in embezzlement to make more money. His confession about the illegal activities was the final blow to our already fragile relationship. My priority was Andrew, my sweet little boy. I couldn't stand the thought of him growing up with a father involved in criminal activities. Josh was not the role model I wanted for him, and I was scared of the consequences of Josh's actions on our family. Who knew what he would do next and how it would affect our lives? I couldn't take that risk, especially with Andrew's future at stake. I wanted the best for my son, Andrew, so I did what any mother would do. We got a divorce and shared custody of Andrew. Breaking free from the toxic situation we were in was scary, but it was also freeing. It's been a smooth year and a few months since the divorce, and things were going well. We had a system. Josh would take Andrew on weekends, and we kept communication minimal. Josh mentioned getting married again, and honestly, if he finds someone who makes him happy, that's his business. Our divorce wasn't even that messy, so it was just an ordinary Monday morning. Andrew got on the school bus, and I started my day. I did some chores and took our dog, Archer, for a walk. Just typical mom stuff. I work as a social media manager for a lifestyle magazine, so I mostly work from home, except for 2 days in the office. I was in my study, getting into my work groove, when I heard a woman's voice calling my name from downstairs. It didn't sound like any of my close friends dropping by for a surprise visit. I went downstairs and there she was, a blonde woman who had barged into my house. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her at first. Then it hit me, it was Claire, Josh's new wife. Emma, finally. I think we need to talk. Oh, hi Claire. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but go ahead. So how long do you plan on staying here? I mean, okay, Josh helped you out at first because you're the mother of his child and because Andrew is with you. But I think it's time you figured out your stuff. It's been months. Hold up. What are you talking about, Claire? I'm just tired of living in a tiny apartment. It's cramped and I couldn't even invite my family and friends over for Christmas. It's really tough to make memories in such a small space. I can see why you and Andrew love it here. It's like a dream home. But the truth is, this place belongs to Josh, and he's been kind enough not to say anything about it. Still, I want a fresh start, a new life right here. I just want us to find a solution that works for everyone. Maybe we could look for a place nearby, somewhere where you and Andrew could still have stability, and I could create a home with Josh. You need to leave. Who told you that, Claire? This house belongs to me. I inherited it from my parents. No need to hide it from me. Josh already told me how you've been spreading rumors that the house is yours and badmouthing him for not being successful. I don't know what's going on between you two, but talking negatively about a guy who's letting you stay under his roof? And think about your son. What kind of picture are you painting of his dad? Hold on, Claire. I'm curious, who's been telling you all this? Let me set things straight. This house is definitely mine, and honestly, Josh is the last person I want to talk about. But Josh said that he owns this place and that it's his. Why would I lie to you? I can show you the paperwork that proves this house is mine. When I got married, my parents gifted me this place and made me the owner. And as for getting my life together, I already have a job that supports me and my son. I don't know what to believe anymore. I was pretty sure Josh had kept Claire in the dark about the house's ownership. Do you have some time, Claire? Yes, I do. Great, let's sit down and have a chat. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee, tea, maybe some water. A cup of tea would be nice. Claire followed me into the living room and sat on the couch. I headed upstairs to find the paperwork, understanding that Claire needed proof, and I couldn't blame her. Who knows how long Josh had been lying to her about the house? After finding the documents, I returned to the living room and handed them to Claire. While she looked through the paperwork, I prepared some hot peppermint tea for us. I'm sorry for blaming you like that, Claire said. It's not an excuse, but you have no idea about the things Josh has been saying about you. What kind of things has he been saying? I asked. All kinds of stuff, Claire replied. He said you were suspicious and crazy during your marriage, and that he had to divorce you because he couldn't handle it anymore. He even pretends to be concerned about Andrew having a mom like you. Josh has been spreading a false story to me and everyone else, claiming that he owns this mansion. According to him, after the divorce, you were struggling and needed time to get back on your feet. As a supposed act of kindness, he offered you this place to stay. He's been boasting about this at dinner parties with his work friends and on vacations with my family. It's like he's turned it into his favorite topic whenever someone mentions you or the divorce. He even said he gave you warning signs, implying that you were clinging to the house. I couldn't believe the rumors Josh had been spreading about me. He was totally trashing my reputation, making it seem like I was a helpless mess after the divorce, relying on his so-called kindness for support. To be honest, I never really doubted Claire for a second. Josh had always been a shady character with his own secrets. The main reason for our separation was because of his involvement in white-collar crimes. Back then, I was still kind of hung up on him, which made me hesitant to expose him. I thought I was in love, but looking back, I definitely made a mistake. I was in a tough spot when it came to Josh. I didn't want him anywhere near our son, but at the same time, I didn't want to see him end up in prison. So I made an excuse about growing out of the relationship and decided to leave quietly. But finding out he's been acting all high and mighty, going around like he's my knight in shining armor, I wasn't going to let that slide. I decided to lay everything out in the open. Claire, there's something you need to know. I'm not sure what Josh told you about why we separated, but I haven't been completely honest with you either. What do you mean, Emma? You see, Josh was involved in embezzlement. Yeah, it was a tough situation. I confronted Josh about his actions, and he finally confessed to using his company's credit card for his own personal use. I was torn between wanting to protect him and feeling the need to do what was right. In the end, I decided not to turn him into the police, but I think he got away with it. Wait, Emma, you're saying Josh, my husband, got tangled up in freaking embezzlement? Seriously? I can't even wrap my head around that. I know, I didn't believe it either. I wanted to protect Andrew from all of this. Josh was still my husband, and I couldn't bring myself to turn him in, but I did what I thought was best for Andrew. I didn't want him to grow up with a father involved in illegal activities. I had to put his safety and future first. Wait, what if he's still pulling off fraud? He never got caught for what he did. If he's not been caught, he's probably still at it. This is blowing my mind. I mean, this is the guy I married. Wow, sorry, I'm just processing all of this. It's a lot to handle. I need to figure out if he's still tangled up in that mess. We can't just let it slide this time. Well, I can think of a plan. Isn't Josh's birthday in 2 weeks? Yes, it is. I've got a genius plan to finally expose him to everyone, Claire. You won't believe the epic idea I've got, so picture this. What if you ask Josh if we could throw his birthday bash at, well, let's just call it his mansion, you know my place. Use all your powers of persuasion until he can't resist saying a big fat yes. We'll invite all his work buddies, basically everyone he's ever met. And then comes the piece de resistance. We'll drop a super special announcement and give him his birthday surprise. Count me in. Take down my number. Claire totally nailed convincing Josh about the big party because when Josh came to pick up Andrew for their weekend together, he asked me about it. Hey Emma, I need to ask you for a favor. Of course, Josh. What is it? Well, Claire wants to throw a big birthday celebration for me, and she wants to invite all my coworkers, her family, and pretty much everyone she knows. The thing is, our place is like a sardine can, and it's just not going to fit all those people. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to let us use your mansion for the party? Andrew would be thrilled about the idea as well. Josh was completely oblivious to the trap we had set for him. Little did he know that he was walking right into our carefully crafted plan. All right, Josh, I'll think about it. The mansion is available, but I'll need to check with work to see if I can get the day off. I'll let you know. Thanks, Emma, Josh said. And there's something else. I know it's a big favor to ask, but could you pretend that the mansion is mine during the party? It would be embarrassing in front of my coworkers and in-laws if they found out I had to borrow your place. I don't want to look like a total loser, and maybe let's not tell Claire about it either. Typical Josh. Well, I don't know, Josh. That seems like a pretty huge thing to keep a secret. I'll have to think about it, but I can't guarantee anything. I know, it's a bit of a stretch. But just think about it. I'd owe you a lot if you'd help me out. Well, I've got to go now. Just text me and let me know, okay? Bye. And just like that, everything fell into place. I texted Claire, letting her know that the plan was a go, and asked her to send out the invites to everyone for Josh's big day. A few days later, I gave Josh the green light to celebrate his birthday at my place and promised to keep his little secret. The big day had finally arrived, Josh's birthday. He walked in with Claire, and we acted all casual, but little did he know that we had a whole plan brewing behind the scenes. Andrew was pumped to see his dad, but I couldn't ignore the hurt and betrayal I felt. I had protected Josh and kept his secrets, and in return he spread lies about me and our marriage. I was done being the good guy, and it was time to change that. As the guests started rolling in, I couldn't help but observe Josh putting on his charming act, trying to look perfect and flawless. But little did he know that his lies were about to be exposed. All of his friends, co-workers, and family members filled my house, totally clueless about what was going to happen. Finally, when almost everyone had arrived, Claire and I gathered everyone around. Hey everyone, so we're all gathered here to give a shout out to Josh today. But if we're going to raise a glass to the guy, it's only fair that you know what he's really about. It's easy to talk smack and spread gossip, but believe me, the truth has a way of showing up. Now, you might be curious about how Claire and I, the ex and the current wife, can actually get along. Well, here's the lowdown. We've both been through the Josh experience, and he has been fooling us around. Josh jumped in. Whoa, hold up, Emma, what's going on? Did you maybe hit the drinks a bit too hard? No worries, everyone, you can just go back to whatever you were up to. I have the situation under control. Hey Josh, just give her a chance to speak, Claire said. I know Josh might have been running his mouth and spreading lies about me, making me look like the crazy one for divorcing him or whatever. But let me set the record straight. There is only one reason why I left him, and that is because he was involved in some shady fraud. Thanks to Claire, the truth came out. Josh has been yapping about how this mansion belongs to him. Well, newsflash, it's actually mine. I've been working to raise my kid while Mr. Fraud over here has been stealing money from companies. The truth behind why I split with Josh is that he was mixed up in embezzlement. I didn't have the guts to call him out on it before, but I'm not holding back anymore. Claire, I don't know what Emma's been telling you, but I promise you it's not what you think. You guys, there's been a mistake, Josh said, trying to regain control. Cut the crap, Josh, Claire snapped. Emma's been real with me, and I know all about your sketchy stuff. It's hard to believe I fell for your stories. Seriously, did you marry me just because you needed a new crash pad after Emma gave you the boot? Well, people, just so you know, the authorities are in the loop, and they'll be showing up any moment. It looks like the party's a no-go today. Seeing as this is my place and not Josh's, you're all free to take off. Are you for real, Emma? You wrecked everything for me. And Claire, seriously, you were in on this? How could you go behind my back with my ex-wife? You too, I'm out of here. The cops are on their way, Josh. It might be a good move to get your lawyer to sort this out, I said. And that's how I finally took care of what needed to be done a long time ago. From what I heard from Claire, there was an ongoing investigation into Josh, and he was found guilty of stealing from the company he used to work for. And not just that, the company he was currently working for also discovered some unexplainable changes in their accounting records. It turns out he was still up to his old tricks, stealing from people. As a result, he had to pay a hefty fine of $110,000 and is now facing a 2-year prison sentence. I tried to shield Andrew from all this for as long as I could, but eventually I had to tell him the truth about his dad and how he wasn't a good man. It has been tough on him, and he still misses his dad at times, but he understands the situation. Exposing Josh and bringing his shady activities to light has been like lifting a weight off my shoulders. I feel so much more liberated now. It's true that sometimes you want to trust people and give them a second chance because everyone deserves one, right? But then there are people like Josh who just don't change. I'm fully embracing my life as a single mom. My priority is Andrew's happiness and well-being, and I won't let anyone drive us down again. My friendship with Claire has been comforting too. It's funny how life can lead to unexpected friendships. It's like I finally dealt with my unfinished business and moved on.